As part of the ongoing tour of military installation across the country, CDS Jammeh enjoins his personnel to maintain peace and stability in the country. Tunisia has recorded its highest inflation rate in more than 30 years amidst the prevailing economic turmoil. And the much talked about November 11 demonstration has been called off thanks to fruitful negotiations. Well, this and more coming your way on The World Today. This is Eyeafrica TV, and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin coming to you live from our studios in Banjul. Many thanks for joining us. I am Amadou Kante, and now the news in detail. Now, the Chief of Defense Staff of the Gambia Armed Forces, Lieutenant General Yahya Jammeh, on Wednesday demonstrated his commitment to peace and stability in the country by delivering a peace message while on tour in the West Coast region. Now, the visit is part of the nationwide tour where he, the CDS, engages his personnel to get first-hand information on their welfare. Moses Imendi has the details in this report.
CDS Yankuba Jammeh is currently on a nationwide tour of military installations in fulfillment of one of his core mandates. The tour avails the CDS an opportunity to interact with his personnel and get first-hand information about the condition of service and their welfare. The CDS was in Katong and Tanje on Wednesday, where he preached a message of peace to the men and women in arms.
Remember, one of our constitutional mandates directs the armed forces to say, and I quote, protect and preserve. These are two variables: protect and defend the territorial integrity and sovereignty of this nation against aggression. Looking at it from that context, one can drive to a hasty conclusion to say it may interpret into we are the custodians and the guarantors of the peace and security of this country. We are the custodians and the guarantors of peace and security of this country. And in achieving that core mandate, it behoves all of us to work closely, to be vigilant, to maintain unity within the ranks, and most importantly, do what is required of us in line with our constitution mandate.
In a similar tour last year, some army units lamented a lack of vehicles for deployment across the country, among other constraints. A year on, it seems help is on its way as the CDS announces the availability of vehicles.
Yes, you also mentioned vehicle. Last time when I came here, there was no vehicle here. Today, as I speak to you, all our deployments across the country, all, Jongun, Farafenye, Kerpate, Lamin Koto, Kudang, Pakaliba, Sambuya, 3 Infantry Battalion, Fajbase, Fatoto, etc., etc. They all have new patrol vehicles. Your battalion headquarters, in addition to that, we have reinforced them equally with new patrol vehicles. We've also reinforced them with 2 troop-carrying vehicles, each of them. That is only organic to them. Today, all the major units within GAF, including the training school, they all have their own organic trucks.
The first leg of the tour that began on the 31st October took him to the North Bank region, Central River region, Upper River region and the Lower River region, where he engaged civilians and civil authorities through meetings and courtesy calls. The second leg began with a visit to the Fonyis in the West Coast region on Monday. CDS Yankuba Drame was accompanied by a high-powered delegation with the Minister of Defense Sering Modunjai and Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Defense Rohibite Dabo as the most notable members of the delegation. Moses Imendi, Eyeafrica News.
Now, moving on, Tunisian citizens have vented their frustration over the prevailing economic hardship they are faced with amid high inflation and skyrocketing prices of food commodities. The North African nation has recorded its highest inflation rate in more than 3 decades, leaving consumers struggling to meet up their needs. The government has, however, deploying measures to stem the public grievances over the economic turmoil. Let's have more details of that in this report.
Tunisian consumers are concerned about continued price increases. Residents say inflation is changing consumer behavior as many people can no longer afford to buy many food products.
The prices are like fire. They are burning the purchasing power of consumers. Products are very expensive and scarce. I don't believe that inflation is around 9%. I feel it's much higher. The middle and low income classes are suffering. It's unbearable. With the current low salaries and the state plans to lift food subsidies, it will only get worse.
Tunisian consumers are suffering from low purchasing power amid a sharp rise in the cost of living. The country's trade minister has assured of gradual lifting of subsidies, which is one of the main reforms discussed with the IMF during recent talks with the government. Officials say they will put in place a new system to cushion the needy.
We will not remove the subsidy of consumer products. The subsidy will be directed to those who need it. The food and energy subsidy is an important social pillar. It is necessary to preserve social peace in Tunisia by protecting the purchasing power of consumers. Instead of subsidizing prices, we will help those who need it directly, raise salaries, and reduce food prices.
Tunisia's head of state has acknowledged that the rising cost of living is affecting millions of consumers in the country amid the current economic turmoil. Meanwhile, the government has denied any plan to remove food subsidies.
The objective of the Tunisian government is to implement structural reforms, including the reform of the subsidy system. We will improve the governance of the subsidy system by targeting the social classes that need it the most. We need to increase production and improve the economic situation to improve the purchasing power and the living conditions of the population.
Officials in the trade and agriculture departments have blamed the shortage of some food products and the unprecedented inflation as being behind the higher production cost, a decline in supply, as well as rising prices on the international market due to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Authorities in Tunisia say that the agreement with the IMF will pave the way for the economic and financial rescue of the North African state. However, economic observers warn that the deal will have a negative impact on subsidies and the purchasing power of millions of consumers.
And from that report there from the northern part of the continent, let's return to the West now, because despite being one of the world's biggest oil producers, Nigerian citizens are currently battling against high cost of cooking gas as the West African country continues to rely on imported gas. Now, according to the country's Bureau of Statistics, prices of gas increased to over 90% in the year 2022 alone, forcing low-income earners to shift to cheaper means. Now, the prevailing gas crisis in Nigeria has been heavily linked to the Ukraine conflict and scarcity of foreign currency in the country, which could further prolong the situation. Here's more details of that in this report.
Sunday Olandi and his family use firewood for cooking in their home. That's because they can no longer afford the gas they used to.
We go to the outskirts of Jos town to buy the firewood. It's cheaper that way because the demand for it has gone up. That's because the price of cooking gas has become unbearable for many people like us.
Nigeria, despite being one of the world's biggest oil producers, imports most of its gas. The country's Bureau of Statistics says the price of cooking gas in the country has increased by 99% this year alone. Refilling a 1 kg cylinder now costs $1.80. Nigeria liquefied natural gas supplies 40% of the cooking gas used in the country, while independent marketers import 60%. But there's now a shortage in the supply due to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine and the scarcity of foreign currency used to pay importers. Many retailers say that problems will continue for as long as they rely on imports.
The country is left to import like 70% of the product. And when you import 70% of the product, at the end of the day, you see, looking at the dollar increment in price, it will definitely affect price.
Economic experts have warned that a long-lasting increase in gas prices will force many people out of business. The reliance on wood to cook food could also have a devastating impact on the country's forests. They are calling on the government to fix broken refineries in the country and improve the local refining that is taking place.
Our forests will be tampered with, our trees will be cut off, wildlife will be affected. Nigeria is a country that is supposed to be like a tourist center. You will not have clean energy because whether you like it or not, firewood and charcoal causes a problem in the ozone layer. The government should do what is needful, as in they should fix the refinery properly. If the refinery is being fixed, I'm telling you, but Nigeria will be an exporting nation.
The government says it is granting licenses to companies to construct new refineries. It adds that it is also rehabilitating its disused ones. Many Nigerians who are taking to alternative energy sources for their cooking can return to use of gas when that is done. But the fixes are expected to be lengthy and expensive, which for now means people like Sanji have no alternative but to cook with whatever they can afford.
And that report is coming from Nigeria. Now, moving on, the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, ICC, Karim Khan, says despite a lack of belief in the delivery of justice and the possibility of peace in Libya, it is not mission impossible. He made this remark while addressing the United Nations Security Council for the first time ever on Libyan soil. It was also the first time that the prosecutor of ICC has been to Libya in a decade. Moses Imendi again with the details in this report.
It has been up to a decade since Libya descended into a state of anarchy following the killing of its longtime leader Colonel Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. Following Gaddafi's death, the oil-rich and once prosperous North African nation descended into anarchy, with rival militias fighting for control of natural resources and territory. The country was split into two, with rival administrations in the east and west, each supported by militias and foreign governments that sought to gain positions of influence in a future stable Libya. The political volatility and the proliferation of armed groups sparked violence and instability across the country, killing hundreds of thousands of people. Both sides and their allies have been accused of gross human rights violations, but up to date, no single Libyan has been brought to justice. This has led to the belief by many in the country that justice may never come. Not necessarily, says Karim Khan, Chief Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, ICC. He believes justice and peace can return to Libya if there is a will to look at new ways of working together and coalescing around human values.
So whilst there is a lack of belief in the delivery of justice, in the possibility of peace, I also emphasize that this is not mission impossible. If we are willing to forge new partnerships, if we're willing to look at new ways of working together, if we're willing to coalesce around human values, not just legal norms, but those legal norms emerge and spring from those human values, I do believe we can do much better in delivering justice for the people of Libya. And hopefully that will assist in a wider hope for sustainable peace in this very ancient and wonderful land.
The people of Libya have had to live through some of the hardest and most despicable times imaginable. despite pledges of support from the international community. A sense of desperation permeates the air. Notwithstanding, the ICC chief prosecutor says such sentiments must not be allowed to take root in the Libyan psyche.
There is fatigue in Libya. There is this sentiment that we've heard it all before. What is the international community doing? What are you at the ICC doing? We talk about justice, but we don't see it and we don't feel it. And one survivor said, we keep hearing about justice. We keep hearing about the ICC. Where are the results? We need these promises to be turned into reality. We can't allow a sentiment to become pervasive that impunity is inevitable.
Libya is a country of immense potential. It is rich in mineral and strategically located, but this is also its curse, hence the destabilization and meddling by external forces. The country's permanent representative to the United Nations, Tahir El-Soni, also addressed the Security Council and reaffirmed Libya's commitment to holding accountable and punishing perpetrators of crimes and violations, but stressed such prosecutions will be under Libyan national law in spite of any challenges. His statement seems to suggest that Libya would like to hold trials within Libya itself, as the country's judicial system was competent enough to guarantee fair trial for all suspects. The ICC only gets involved in trials when the concerned state shows unwillingness or incapability in trying suspects. The visit of the ICC chief prosecutor to Libya, the first in 10 years, will no doubt offer fresh hope to a people who have so long waited for the return of stability and normalcy to their lives. Recent clashes between rival factions in the capital Tripoli back in August aroused fears that Libya could plunge into further chaos, a possibility which may only make the pursuit of peace and justice much more distant. Moses Imende, Eyeafrica News.
And from the report there, let's return to matters back home, because the coalition of progressive Gambians on Wednesday announced the cancellation of a nationwide protest march it had earlier on planned for the 11th of November. Now, the planned protests were meant to serve as a wake-up call for the government to tackle issues of corruption, the high crime rates, and exorbitant cost of living in the country. Mafuji Sise was at the press conference where the cancellation was made.
The planned protest march for November 11th by activists of the coalition of progressive Gambians will have caused trouble not only for the security forces but also the ordinary citizens who may have nothing to do with it if it had gone ahead as planned. All administrative headquarters in the country, including the Makati Square in Banjul, will have been occupied by protesters demanding that government does something about the rate of unemployment, the high crime rate, official corruption, and the high cost of living. But after much consultation between the activists, government, and other stakeholders, the parties came to an agreement wherein the coalition of progressive Gambians will abandon their planned strike while the government tackles the issue raised by the activist group. A positive outcome for what could have potentially been an ugly encounter among the stakeholders that helped in diffusing the tension was the Supreme Islamic Council. Its president is Ismaila Dabo. He revealed how the council had to meet the activists on 5 occasions before a consensus was reached to abort the planned protest.
I want to commend them, thank them for their response to our call. I also want to thank the Gambia government for their commitment by sending people that are part of us since October 30th. We have about 5 sittings, intensive discussion, consultation and dialogue until we reach the agreement which is going to be read today. Supreme Islamic Council is concerned about the peace in this country.
The secretary to the Coalition of Progressive Gambians, Dawda Demba, stated the role played by the Supreme Islamic Council in bringing the parties together for a dialogue. The activists were represented by their executive, while the Gambia government was represented by officials from the Ministries of Interior and Information, the State Intelligence Services, and the Office of the Inspector General of Police. Also present was Peace Network Consultancy, which is committed to ensuring free and fair elections, mediation, peace, education, conflict resolution, negotiations, and reconciliation.
The joint statement on planned November 11 peaceful demonstration. The Gambia Supreme Islamic Council, as a major stakeholder in the maintenance of national peace and stability, has for fifth occasion engaged the Coalition of Progressive Gambians and the Gambia and the government of the Gambia to dialogue on demands advanced by the pressure group.
Already allegations of bribery were starting to surface, and these were vehemently refuted by Haji Suwane, who then went on to reiterate that the decision to pull the brakes was taken because the government agreed to their demands.
There were allegations of mismanagement and failure to follow procurement procedures. So we call on the attention of the government to address those issues. If you say that maybe we collected brown envelopes, maybe that would be an opinion which I cannot control. But anyway, how I know myself, I don't think this government will be able to bribe me to compromise my integrity or the integrity of the Coalition of Progressive Gambia. So the fact remains, we are postponing these demonstrations because we are assured by the government of the Gambia that the concerns we raise, the Auditor General has a group, we pointed our finger to the Auditor General that we want to have an engagement with him to know why they are not coming up with punishments on offices or departments that are accused of corruption or mismanagement of public funds.
The fear of the outcome of a nationwide protest that may turn violent and the material and economic destruction it could cause possibly inform government's decision to dialogue with the group. But in any case, the amicable settlement of the planned protest will be highly welcomed by many Gambians who will have fear a repeat of the kind of ugly scenes witnessed during the 3 years Jotna protest, in which many of members of the security forces were adjourned to have used excessive force in dispersing protesters. Could this be the beginning of a new era in the Gambia, where the government is beginning to give a listening ear to its citizens? Well, only time will tell. Mafusise, Eyeafrica News.
And you are watching the World Today News Bulletin on Eyeafrica TV, coming to you live from our studios in Banjul and from the reporter by Mafuji Sise. Let's now take a break and come back shortly. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
A form of kidney damage known as acute kidney injury, AKI, was detected among children in the Gambia. This disease is fatal and has killed children in the country. The signs and symptoms include diarrhea, vomiting, little or no urination, runny nose, cough, and fever. The cause of this condition in children are yet to be known. However, certain industrial chemicals found in medicinal syrups and certain bacteria in the environment can cause AKI. The Ministry of Health is advising all mothers and caregivers to take their sick children to the nearest health facility in the community. to avoid self-medication and encourage the public to continue with their personal hygiene at all times. Parents and caregivers are also advised not to give children the following contaminated baby syrups manufactured by Made in Pharmaceuticals Limited: promethazine oral suspension BP, Cofex Malin baby cough syrup, Mac-Off baby cough syrup, and Magrip and cold syrups. For more information on AKI, please call 1025. This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Health and Medicine Control Agency with support from the World Health Organization, WHO.
Welcome back. This is Eyeafrica TV and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin. And let's now look at the rest of the stories. And now to some matters related to climate change, because as world leaders converge to dialogue and initiate measures to combat climate change, young people on the African continent are also using their artistic skills to amplify their voices to climate change-related issues. Several African countries, such as Kenya, are adversely impacted by the effects of climate change. Citizens struggle to access clean drinking water. Young people from different African countries recently met in Nairobi for Africa Climate Story Love Symposium, which focuses on youth participation in climate action. Here's more details of that in this report.
Youth across Africa are recognizing climate change as an emergency. They're coming up with innovative solutions to help mitigate the effects and speak about it. This gives them an opportunity to be part of the climate change story. Sandra Subi from Uganda is one of them. As a visual artist, she believes there is an opportunity to change mindsets and enlighten the world about recycling and dangers of plastic pollution through her songs and attires made from plastic.
The energy is rising, filling up the air. See, forests are burning, burning the green away. Oh, swamps are flooding.
Grace Kenya from Kenya is also on a mission to create awareness about water conservation and climate change. Water scarcity remains a major challenge in the country due to the growing population and recurrent droughts. According to the United Nations, around 41% of Kenyans lack access to safe drinking water.
My game is called Downstream, the H2O game. It's a water conservation game. So it helps players conserve water. For example, if they reuse water, they get points. They answer questions on how much water is on Earth. They answer questions on grey water, things like that. So basically, it's helping people conserve water, but in a very fun and exciting way. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey, everyone is safe. It's a turn.
How many days can you survive without drinking water?
10 days. You're wrong. It's 2 days.
2 days. Yeah. So you lose 5 liters.
Subi and Kenya were among dozens of creatives taking part in the recent Climate Story Lab Africa Symposium held in Nairobi. The forum, which is in its second year, is pushing for youth participation in climate action.
The reason why you find most young people detached from the climate change conversation is because of the heavy language that is used. But creating such platforms as Climate Story Lab Africa, where you allow them to come, use their creativity, to use storytelling, to use their artistic and talents that they have, then you will find that they can be able to communicate their experiences and provide solutions to climate crisis that we are currently facing.
While it remains unclear just how much art can change people's minds, artists are certain that it can be helpful in getting them to connect with a cause.
Quite a very interesting, but also, of course, inspiring report here from the Kenyan capital Nairobi on climate change-related issues. Back here in the Gambia, the outgoing Director of Health Promotion and Education at the Ministry of Health has awarded several media houses, including Eyeafrica TV, for their contribution and role played in the national response on risk communication and community engagement in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic in the Gambia, a sign of appreciation from a fellow communicator who has collaborated with a press for years and has now taken up a new job with the Africa Center for Disease Control. Mafuji Sese reports.
Mamadou Njai was Director for Health Promotion and Education at the Ministry of Health for years, and during all this time made effective use of the press in disseminating much needed information to the public on crucial health matters. Now he leaves for a new job with the African Center for Disease Control, where he will oversee the West African region. In a farewell statement on Wednesday, Mamadou Njai called on journalists to maintain cooperation with the ministry for a better flow of information to the masses. He gave assurance of his continuous support to the media in the Gambia, whilst expressing hope that the long-standing relationship between journalists and the ministry will remain strong at all times.
So I assure you that the journalists I know and I work with are the same journalists I'm going to work with, whether I'm in the Gambia or not. Be rest assured, I'm going to give you that support. Wherever the opportunities are, you'll be supported. I know some of you have benefited trainings, because sometimes we are consulted. They want to organize training for media houses and so on. And 2 people returned recently from Benin. And the idea there is to have a regional body for for journalists under the Africa CDC, which is also different from the structure under WAHO. But we're going to see how best we put all these structures together so that we can have one unique body for West Africa region.
Mas Diouf, the program officer at the ministry's Health Promotion Directorate, lauded the outgoing director for creating a friendly working environment for his team. He also commended the media for their continuous support and cooperation with the ministry.
Mamadou Njai, because I can't call him director anymore, he's done with us, but he'll be with us in spirit. Mamadou Njai has been a person, a figure with charisma that have really coached us, mentored us, inculcated professional habits in us, such that today he is leaving us. He is leaving the professionalism behind. He is leaving the brains that should pick up the job of this directorate to ensure that you, the people of various media, work with us and continue working with us to ensure that whenever issues or emergencies happen, you sit with us to ensure that informations are shared as you used to.
Pradipta Ajha, a consultant for the UNICEF, emphasized the need for a better working relationship with the media, whilst acknowledging the efforts played by the outgoing director.
So easy and so fulfilled in our coordination together that I expect whoever person comes over for this position, because he has already Modu has already set a benchmark. So we expect that the same cooperation from all of you, whoever comes and takes over this position, we will all get the same support for this country, for the children and women of this country, to make these things going and to make this country most healthy and happy.
Some journalists who had a cordial working relationship with the outgoing director were given an opportunity to make a statement. 13 media houses received certificates in recognition of their outstanding and extensive coverage of the activities of the ministry, particularly at the time of the national response on risk communication and community engagement. Mafuji Sise, Eyeafrica News.
Gambia's former health director today takes a new job at the Africa CDC, Mamadou Njai, and we wish him good luck. Of course, health promotion, I should say. And finally, to some sports-related news, because cultural gender roles play a large part in, of course, contributing to the lack of female referees in the Gambia. That, coupled with recruitment patterns that seems to target men more, also impedes the recruitment of women referees. But despite all of these odds, some women have been able to weather this storm and through hard work and perseverance achieve their aims. Yahya Jammeh has the details of that in this report.
Football is a global game nowadays played by both men and women, but it's fair to say that the women's game is still developing with the recent introduction of females leagues in a number of countries. The expansion of the game also means that women can now become referees, a career which in the past was the preserve of men only. Here in the Gambia, football is fast becoming highly integrated with the women's game taking root. This means that women are also able to take up refereeing roles. But it has not always been easy, as Aissatou Touré has been telling me. Aissatou is a FIFA referee and one of the best in the country. She tells me of how she's been coping with misogyny within the game.
To be a referee, particularly a female referee, is not easy. It's very difficult. A lot of provocation. I went through a lot, most especially when playing men's game. It's always difficult. I just gave them deaf ear because I know what I wanted. My eye was on Papa Gassama, and I want to reach where Papa Gassama reached. That's why whatever they say against us, I just give a deaf ear. If I was following them, I won't reach where I am today.
Female referees may be facing a lot of challenges, but those among them that stay the course can go on to achieve greatness for themselves and the country. In 2020, Aissatou Touré was selected to perform as a central referee in the WAF Zone 2 Women's Football Championship held in Sierra Leone, a feat she recalls with pride.
I feel proud. We normally train here. Because of Papa Gassama, I'm a FIFA referee. And as you know, we are 4 here. Gambia, we have 2 central FIFA referees and 2 assistant referees. Make it 1 panel. Gambia, we only have 1 panel. But Alhamdulillah, I feel very proud. I've been officiating international matches. I'm just from Mauritania recently for the under-20.
And she wants more and more.
Training here at the Gold Project is always tough, always high intensity. As we witnessed today was very light. It was low intensity. Every day we normally come here from 8 o'clock till 9:30 we disperse. You know, I'm an immigration officer. So we normally come here in the morning for training. Then after training, I go take shower, then I go to work. So it's not easy. I want to reach where Gassama reach. I want to play the World Cup. It's my target, inshallah, and I know I can do it.
Aissatou Touré began plying her trade in 2011, and after much hard work, she got her FIFA accreditation badge in 2015. Although progress has been made in paving the way for female participation in football, here in the Gambia, the view is that more needs to be done to bring about complete inclusivity with equal opportunity. Reporting for Eyeafrica News, I am Yahya Jammeh.
Yes, and thank you, MC. And of course, as mentioned earlier, against all odds, Gambian football female referees, including Aissatou, continue to break barriers and boundaries to make name in the beautiful game. And with that report there now, we eventually bring this news edition to an end. But for more details on this and other stories, as always, as ever, you can visit on our website on Eyeafrica.tv. But for now, many thanks for the privilege of your company. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and do have a pleasant evening. Bye for now.